हेलो नमस्कार दोस्तों। द टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में छपा लेख वाई PLI इज़ वर्थ डूइंग ये सामान्य अध्ययन पेपर 3 के लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है, तो इसको डिस्कशन करते हैं। PLI क्या होता है और ये कैसे उपयोगी है भारत की इकोनॉमी के लिए। तो वाई PLI इज़ वर्थ डूइंग। क्रिटी क्रिटिक्स क्रिटिक्स मीन्स होता है आलोचक, आर मिसिंग बोथ द इमीडिएट इकोनॉमिक लॉजिक एंड इट्स लॉन्गर टर्म स्ट्रेटेजिक बेनिफिट। लेखक हैं इसके सोमनाथ मुखर्जी जी। द राइटर इज द मैनेजिंग पार्टनर एंड CIO ASK वेल्थ एडवाइजर्स। द recent Vedanta Foxconn semiconductor factory in Gujarat, at an eye-popping investment of $20 billion, has unsurprisingly engendered a firestorm of commentary. It also reignited the policy critique of the government's flagship प्रोडक्शन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव। तो PLI का फुल फॉर्म होता है प्रोडक्शन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव। मीन्स कि एक्स नाम की कोई फैक्ट्री है, वो अगर किसी स्थान पर भारत में अगर अपनी फैक्ट्री को स्थापित करती है और ख़ास करके सेमी कंडक्टर की फैक्ट्री स्थापित करती है, तो सरकार उसको 50% तक का सहायता प्रदान करेगी। तो इसे कहा जाता है प्रोडक्शन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव। या ये हो सकता है कि यदि कोई एक्स नाम की कंपनी एक निश्चित मात्रा में उत्पादन करती, मान लीजिए कि 100 गुड्स का उत्पादन करी, तो एक निश्चित मात्रा में उत्पादन करने पर सरकार उसको सहायता देगी। द प्रोग्राम, ये PLI यानी कि प्रोडक्शन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव स्कीम, द प्रोग्राम that is the fount of investments like Vedanta Foxconn. The critique received serious intellectual heft from ex-RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan's cautionary analysis, making in India, but how? September 12 इसमें उन्होंने बताया है in these pages. How rigorous is the critique given the empirical evidence will take a few years to come in yet. For starters, typically PLI on a specific product category is accompanied or preceded by higher tariffs on the product. This reverses a long trend of lower import tariffs and usually results in higher sticker price for Indian consumer. Rajan quite evocatively quoted in the example of iPhone 13 costing rupees 1.29 lakh in India versus rupees 92,500 in Chicago. Sounds logical, perhaps in colloquial parlance. In the real policy making domain, it's neither new nor terribly surprising. The sticker price of the Mercedes-Benz S-Class manufactured in India cost rupees 1.6 crore while being available for under rupees 1 crore in the US. The iconic Ralph Lauren Polo T-shirt stitched in India retails at price points starting from rupees 13,000 in India. In the US, it's available at nearly half of that price. The need for PLIs. The reasons are complex, one of them being domestic tariffs, but economies incentive exports via tax holidays on products where they have comparative advantages to earn the foreign exchange required for essentials, hydrocarbons and capital goods in the case of India. Ergo higher price of iPhones, a luxury product in is not a great handle to defend consumer affordability in a low income country. Indian manufacturing has been under a prolonged frunk for a long time. Despite 30 years of reforms, manufacturing as a proportion of GDP has not really picked up meaningfully. Poor infrastructure, labor laws, land acquisition laws, low HDI and Human Development Index. The reasons are known enough to evoke a sense of deja vu. PLI यानी production linked incentive seeks to cut through the issue through a direct practical interventions. First, it recognizes that India's manufacturing productivity is perhaps 20-30% lower than the rest of Asia. Second, it recognizes that perfect ambient conditions will probably take too long. As a solution, it offers a grand bargain to large corporations. If we are 30% less productive than China, then the government will, through PLI, monetize that productivity, dance it for the private investor, provided the latter invest in large global scale capacities. It's the industrial variant of direct cash transfer. Ideally, poverty should be eliminated via greater investments in education and healthcare. But given the long lead times, DCT has become a popular policy tool. Global lays a direct attack on the problem. PLI is not terribly different. We can afford it. Like any physical invention, a key consideration justifiably is around taxpayer burden to fund PLI. Is it affordable? The total estimated outlay combined for the 14 PLI programs rolled out is rupees 3.46 lakh crore. Not a small amount at first glance, but this is expected to spend over 5 years within reasonable assumptions. It would be 1.5% of union budget outlay, 0.2% of GDP. Not small, but not something that will break the budget either. Further, the total outlay is dependent on milestone production achievements. If the maximum projected milestones are indeed achieved, they would likely generate enough additional taxes to pay for the program by itself. Post PLI fears are misplaced. What happens post PLI? Will the manufacturers wind down production as soon as PLI subsidies case in 5 years, as Rajan fears? This betrays a fundamental disconnect on how business decisions are done. Let's take the Vedanta Foxconn case. Going by reported numbers, the sponsors are investing $20 billion and over 5 years expect to receive $10 billion in PLI. It will be a reckless CEO to be spending $20 billion with a business model that is predicated on $2 billion per year incentive as the only handle on his return on investment. Further, large ecosystems, once built, have their own momentum. The Indian auto industry is a great example. Despite familiar issues of infrastructure, labor laws, etc., it is a sprawling near world class industry today. The strategic angle. In a post COVID world, the rationale is not entirely economic either. Major economies are looking to build redundancies redundancies on critical products. This is especially true for strategically important products like semiconductors and pharmaceuticals. फार्मास्यूटिकल्स की स्पेलिंग फार्मास्यूटिकल्स, CEUCeuticals, ठीक। द रिसेंटली इनेक्टेड चिप्स एंड साइंस एक्ट in the US pledges legally to invest $53 billion into semiconductor research and production in the US. As a context, that is five times the amount placed in India's semiconductor PLI and larger than India's entire PLI outlay. The great Shane Vaughan once commented on English spinner Monty Penniser, Monty has not played 33 tests. He has played his first test 33 times. PLI isn't perfect, but it's a new experiment. At least, we will make new mistakes, which will give fresher insights to work off rather than trying to run the same playbook of labor laws and land acquisition and better HDI for a few more decades and make the same old mistakes. So, this was a tough article, but I read all this, but I could not understand. Now, we should study next editorial of The Hindu, Home and Abroad. If India is to unite polarized nations, it must bring all divisive forces under control. This article is related to international relations because recently you must know that USA um, tried to help Pakistan to repair some of aircrafts, etc., helicopters. So India opposed that USA should not repair Pakistani helicopters because Pakistan promotes terrorism and Pakistan propagate negative agenda towards India. So USA should not hurt India's interest. That is why USA told that I am just repairing, and Shri S. Jaishankar reply or asked, told in a harsh word that we know your intentions, you should not hurt India's interest. And again, USA's reply came that my intention means USA's intention is not to hurt India's interest. So related to that matter, this article has been written. Now let's read. Delivering India's statement at the United Nations General Assembly this year, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar spoke of several challenges in India's past, present, and future, with a special emphasis on the immediate shocks arising from the war in Ukraine, the COVID 19 pandemic, climate change, and terrorism. In stark contrast to the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who made pejorative remarks about India, Mr. Jaishankar made no direct comment on Pakistan, nor did he directly mention India's challenge at the line of actual control. Although he criticized China's habit of politicizing and blocking UN Security Council terrorist designations. His comments on Ukraine were watched as they came days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi was lauded by Western countries for telling Russian President Vladimir Putin that the era of war is over. Mr. Jaishankar expanded on Mr. Modi's theme without seeming to either criticize Russia or condone its actions. Instead, He said India stands on the side of peace, of respect for the UN Charter, dialogue, and diplomacy, and with all those now grappling with escalating costs of food, of fuel, and fertilizers. His words were even handed and require global stakeholders to consider both the risks from the conflict in Ukraine and from US, EU, means United States, European Union led sanctions that should exacerbate global economic fragmentation and inflationary trends. The prognosis seems even bleaker given that just prior to the UNGA, Mr. Putin delivered a speech committing to Russia's ability to use all weapons, indicating nuclear options, while the Ukrainian president said no dialogue could bring an end to the war, calling instead for money, weaponry, and global effort to punish Russia. Above all, Mr. Jaishankar hailed what he called the New India under Mr. Modi, spelling out five pledges made at 75th Independence Day anniversary, which includes making India a developed nation by 2047. He added that India is ready to take on enhanced responsibility at the global body and called for a South the year ahead, where India will host the G20 summit, will no doubt test the will and ability of Modi government to play the role of global uniter and what Mr. Jaishankar called a bridge to play a similarly uniting role in its own neighborhood and bring polarizing and divisive forces within India under control. So this was the article that we read. Thanks for watching till the end.